If one Neil Brown eventually gets it done at West Virginia, he can look back on this Thursday night as possibly the turning point, or maybe just West Virginia always beats Baylor at home in Morgantown. Welcome to the Voice of College Football on a Thursday night. We kick off the weekend in style with a great ball game in Morgantown as the Mountaineers even up their record at 3-3, downing the Baylor Bears and backup quarterback after Blake Shapen was knocked out of the game. West Virginia wins in stunning fashion. Real barn burner there with special teams getting the job done for the Mountaineers. 43-30, your final score in the Big 12. And we will take your calls throughout the night here at the Voice of College Football. And we have left the link to join the show at the top of the comments section. So I will drop it a few more times in the live chat. And if we've got any other folks moderating tonight, please do what you do best. And we appreciate you promoting the show, of course, and encouraging folks to hit the like button. So you can at least do that for us. Even if you don't agree with me, if you enjoy what we provide, the best discussion, debate, and analysis of college football. Even if you don't believe we deliver the best in discussion, debate, and analysis of college football, but you enjoy the show or you enjoy ripping on me or whomever, please hit the like button. That keeps us around. And again, we will continue to drop the link there in the live chat. And we will break down college football as we look forward to another great weekend of Week 7. Let's get to the calls. Let's get revved up and get going right out of the gate. We have Ian from Akron on the line to kick us off. Hello, Ian.
Hey, Mark. How you doing tonight?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So you watched the whole game, I presume?
I did not.
Oh. Well, it was a heck of a game, I would say.
It looks like it.
Yeah, I mean, really entertaining game. And I want to thank you because I turned on Thursday Night Football with the Bears and the Commanders, and I'm sitting there. I'm like, let me look at if Mark's going to come on tonight or if he's got any new videos. And I see like live post game for Baylor and West Virginia. Totally forgot they were playing tonight. So thank you for that, for the reminder, because it was much better to watch that game. Not a great necessarily defensive performance from either team if they're scoring in the 40s. But I will say for giving up so many points, there were like a lot of really big defensive plays in that game. And I think that was a big difference for West Virginia. They had that number 2, Burks. He had that forced fumble and then that huge interception. And then the other guy, Cox, number 7, he recovered the one fumble, and then he had the scoop and score. So those were just big things. But the huge defensive stand for West Virginia after the guy, number 2, Burks, he intercepts the ball. There's like 3 minutes left. You're thinking, okay, if West Virginia's up by 3, if they can just get a drive going and run down the clock, they got it. And they throw the ball right back. JT Daniels throws the ball right back to Baylor. And then West Virginia makes a real nice stand, holds them to a field goal, makes it a tie game. And then West Virginia finished and got down there and kicked their field goal. But, yeah, big congratulations for Joey Foster and Golden Blue, dude. I know they needed that one. And it just makes me think of how great your show is and why we all love your show, because a couple of years ago, would I have cared about what West Virginia was doing? I probably watched the game, be indifferent about it, maybe even be like, oh, let's see if Baylor can pull it out. But your show makes you think about these guys, and you kind of want to pull for them, root for them. Otherwise, might not care at all. Or like, would I care if Kentucky is doing well? No, but it makes you think of the real MVP, and you want to pull for the Wildcats. So, yeah, just wanted to say it was a great game tonight. Congrats to those guys. And just remember, people, especially with the top 25 that actually makes sense. If you're going to be a moron, at least be an honest moron.
Well, I appreciate all that, Ian, because I got to tell you that I admitted the other night when we were talking about college football in the NFL and whether college football should play on Thursday night opposite the NFL, that whenever the NFL started playing Thursday night games, and I got to say I've lost track of when that would have been, maybe 10 or 15 years ago. I know that occasionally back in the day, in the 80s and 90s, they would pop on with a Thursday night game maybe 3 or 4 times a year. But at whatever point they went to every Thursday night playing Thursday night games, usually the NFL matchup was more attractive to me than the college football matchup. So I admitted to that I would watch the NFL on a Thursday night. I would watch that lousy Houston-Jacksonville game over whatever college football would give us, Houston and Tulane and Tulsa and Navy. But now with what these games being on Amazon, and I'm not going to go through the struggles and the trials and the tribulations to try to figure out what I need to do to get the NFL games. I don't. My attachment to the NFL has waned quite a bit just in the last couple of years. I still like to watch the NFL, but man, I used to go through any lengths possible on a Sunday afternoon to get out of whatever obligations I was involved in to watch NFL games. And now I just find myself, I'm taking care of family situations and spending time with family and not watching the NFL. And then like tonight, I was looking forward to watching this game. I got to say that I kind of lost track of time and when the game started, which was 7 o'clock. I was with family until 8 o'clock. So I already missed the first hour. And then I had my Miami obligation here. So we did our hurricane show from 8 to 9. So that wiped out close to half the game there. And then I've got a zillion people to get back to, and I tend to watch these games a lot of the time with a laptop in my hand and doing way too much work and posting videos and editing and 25 channels. So as it turned out, I keep telling myself, okay, I'm going to set down this laptop and I'm going to watch the rest of this game because I had the game on in front of me from the time that it was like 17 all, and kept thinking I'm going to put this laptop down for the second half or for the fourth quarter or and it just never happened. And so I had it on, kept track, but I couldn't really tell you what happened other than I saw a blocked PAT that was run back for a 2-point conversion and things like that. But I'm glad you make those connections to myself and to a number of folks that take part in our Voice of College Football community.
Yeah, man, it was a tight-knit game the whole time. There was no one really pulled ahead for long periods of time. And I forgot that's another defensive triumph that they had with the blocked extra point that they ran back, which was a difference in that game. But yeah, man, like I'm the same as you. I enjoy watching football, so I'll throw NFL on. But on a Sunday, I don't say not doing anything else and trying to get away from everything just so I can watch the NFL. But on a Saturday, that's how I feel. For whatever reason, there's just so much more going on in college football to where I can turn on any game that I don't have a dog in the fight in. And for some reason, even those late Pac-12 games, I'll stay up and watch it. Otherwise, I'd go to bed because there's just something about college football. But yeah, Mark, thank you so much. I won't keep you. I know you're a busy guy, and thanks for what you do. Keep doing what you're doing.
Thanks, Ian. You will be pleased to know, I hope you will be pleased to know that we've been working on this merchandising idea. So we have been working to get some merchandise out there, and I have told several people about your idea. So
well, yeah, it was a bit of a random one, but like I said, I literally jot down or save in the notes in my phone a few of the things you say, because once in a while you just hit some profound lines, and And it's great because, I mean, it just speaks to the way you do things and the way you see things. And it's like, because, you get these fans that you nailed it with them. At least be an honest moron. If you want to be passionate about something and you really love something, it's like, come on now, people. So yeah, get that going. I think Joey was talking about it, right? With the networking with the merchandise.
Yes, her guy Joey.
Great guy.
Yes.
Joey's a great guy. So I'm sure he's having a great night.
I sure hope so. I hope that he and GBD and other Coos and Travis Kenobi, all our friends from the Mountaineer State and West Virginia family, that they can just kick back and enjoy an exciting game. And even if nothing comes of their season, this, as you say, this is what college football is all about. Even if your team is out of it, you can't talk about playoffs. You just enjoy a really good football game and your team coming back to win a game.
Exactly. One more thing before I let you go, Mark. JT Daniels. Now, this guy highly recruited when he was at USC first, correct?
Yes.
And then went to Georgia. So, like, big name, had some injury problems and maybe wasn't performing as well as he should. But would you say his injuries hindered him more than, like, he didn't get quite the chance that he should have early in his career?
Well, sure. He was knocked out for an entire season. So that second season in which USC was a little bit better than they were his first season. And we got to remember that first season that he played at USC, it's pretty remarkable that he should have been a high school senior. And instead of being a high school senior playing high school football, he's the starting quarterback at USC.
Right.
And so that was 2018. Then he got knocked out 2019. And really, he hasn't had a season since. 2020 was compromised. 21. We'll see what happens here in 22.
Yeah, that's the impression I was under. I just hadn't followed him that much. And now he's at his third school. So doesn't that kind of prove that no one's been following that transfer rule? We don't need to get into that, but I always thought it was a one-time transfer rule. And anyway, I guess I'm just bringing him up because I see him make some great throws, and he's had all this potential, and he's had a rough time with injuries and everything. But I don't know. I just wonder if that guy's going to be an NFL quarterback, but I don't know. I haven't watched him enough. Just wondering your take on it.
Well, my take is I will say that while I didn't ardently watch this football game, as I mentioned, I watched a couple series every play, and he made a throw to the left sideline where he must have thrown this ball at a time in which there was, one of us would not be able to have been able to, let alone have the physical skill, have the vision and the anticipation to make the throw, where at the time of launch point, receiver, defensive back, coverage, window, all of it was not even close to where it had to be when the ball arrived, and he made a brilliant throw to the left sideline. So he's got great arm talent and ability.
Yeah, he has shown some shades of that brilliance. But then I also see him make some really questionable throws. Like the one where he threw it right back after West Virginia picked off the ball in the red zone, and he throws it right back to him. And it was just a very stupid throw. There was a defender right there. So I don't know. I see him do that sometimes too. And then, yeah, you see those glimpses of a really great quarterback. So just wondering about that. But first time I got to really watch West Virginia intently, and it was a good time. And I was thinking about those West Virginia fans that come on here. So thanks again, Mark, and hope everything's well in life, and you have a good rest of the night.
Well, thanks for calling, Ian. It was great to hear from you, and I hope everything is going well for you as well. And have a good night. Enjoy the football this weekend.
Absolutely, Mark. Thank you.
there's our buddy Ian from Akron. And Ian, again, comes up with a slogan that may soon find its way to a T-shirt on your back that says, you can be a moron, but at least be an honest one. If I get that right, we're going to make the direct line contact with Ian before the T-shirt is officially printed to make sure we don't mess up my own quote. But he took it down verbatim. So we'll make sure that we get that correct, but it's something along the lines of you can be a moron, but at least be an honest one. So that comes from me, of course, putting people in their place, but also saying, hey, you can be a knucklehead and not understand the sport or understand what we're breaking down here, but at least, don't lie about your position. Anyway, so the lines are open as the crowd mounts, and One Scoop John has placed the link back in the chat, so we're awaiting your calls. Let's get to the college football weekend. Let me pull up the schedule. Here we go. And keep in mind that we've got content all over the place as we typically do. And I got to tell you, I go on these YouTube rants every so often. So while nobody's calling and we're waiting to get into the week 7 schedule, I will go on these YouTube rants every so often because they're a bit confusing to me at times, because I am striving. We are striving to have representation all over the place in regards to the fans that take part here. We just, we've got Michigan fans, Ohio State fans. Of course, we've got the Big Ten well represented. We hope that the other conferences are well represented. Tony, Tim, and Rick also exploring with Ben and others. Eric have done a great job of bringing in the Pac-12 audience and helped us there. Connor Johnson, we see him. We love the Pac-12. We've ranked it as the 3rd best conference in America this year. No, number 4. Anyway, we'll go back to our conference rankings at some point when we get to the bowl play. But absolutely. So we want a great and even distribution of college football fans is what I am hoping for one day to achieve. But I tell you, this is basically YouTube at work. I saw a video today basically talking about that you just can't throw videos out there. And unfortunately, that's what I do. I don't have time to work through the YouTube algorithms and try to figure out and mastermind and outthink YouTube. But this is kind of typical of what happens. Last Saturday, LSU and Tennessee played a very ho-hum game. Tennessee won the game easily. They were the much better team. It was not a great game by an entertainment standard or otherwise, but I threw out a video of my analysis because I anticipated it being a great game, and I watched the first half, and there was no need to watch the rest of the game. I watched other games, but I churned out a Tennessee analysis video on Saturday afternoon, right when the game was over, with over 8,000 views on this video. Purdue, Maryland was a great game. Now, Purdue, Maryland was a great game. They played at the same time. They were both noon games, and I watched both of those intently. And even though knowing that my best route for viewership would be to produce a Michigan video, actually, I should just produce a Michigan video every Saturday. I should just do that. But Michigan, Indiana was not interesting me anywhere close to these other games until it got close in the 3rd quarter. And then I almost produced a Michigan video, but I went the Tennessee LSU route, 8,000 views. And then I produced this Purdue Maryland analysis after that game was over. And that was a great game. 1,000 views, 1,000 views will not cut it. It's kind of a waste of time to produce a video with only 1,000 views. Then I did, after watching UCLA Utah, did a UCLA video because, of course, they came up with a big win, 3,600 views. That's not necessarily going to cut it either, but it's okay. And so what is strange is that I produced Tennessee videos both last Saturday after the game, a Tennessee video with over 8,000 views, which is okay. We hope to do better. But then I produced a Tennessee video like 2 or 3 days ago, 300 views, 344. Oh, my word. You talk about a waste of time. That is a complete waste of time. Likewise, Alabama-Tennessee. That is a huge game. And I thought since we produced a Tennessee video last Saturday that did rather well, 8,000 views, I do a Tennessee-Alabama preview, 207 views. Oh, what a colossal waste of my time. Colossal waste of my time. But I did a Michigan-Penn State preview. Which game's bigger? Michigan-Penn State, Tennessee, Alabama. They're both huge. Those are the two biggest games of the week. The Michigan-Penn State, 5,500 views, which again is higher than most on my channel, but it's not that significant. Big Ten Power Rankings, over 7,000 views. Then I do the SEC Power Rankings, 678. I did ACC today. You talk about a waste of time. Nobody watched that. So trying to get a beat on my audience, but at the same time, even if the audience tells me that I should do all of such and such team or such and such conference, I'm not going to give in to that because we want to pull in the fan bases from the other conferences and from the other teams. So if I've got like no Wisconsin people watching, that doesn't mean I'm not going to do Wisconsin videos and I'm going to ignore them because I want to pull them in. But boy, it's taken quite a long time. It's taken quite a long time. There we go. Daniel Henry's telling us, the Daniel Henry, in line with the Ohio State. Mark, start trolling the SEC crowd. Numbers will skyrocket. Well, that's hard to do, Daniel Henry, because me, unlike others, I don't troll. I just tell the truth. See, that's the difference between maybe me and some others, is I'm not the knucklehead that just clickbaits to death everybody. So I don't do that. So that doesn't mean I'm not going to try to post a video with an enticing title. That's different. That's just good business. That's just good content creation. But I'm not going to troll. Sorry. That's good idea. That's good idea. But I'm not going to be that knucklehead that's going to troll people. So that may work in the short term, but long term, we want credibility here. So yeah, I just tell the truth. Sometimes the truth's boring. That's the problem. I tell the truth all the time and I just spit out the facts. And I know that a lot of you sometimes come away from that being like, we already knew that. That's pretty obvious. Well, sometimes the truth is obvious, but sometimes I uncover the truth and I let people know the truth and they're like, what? What's he talking about? That's crazy. No, that's the truth, or at least a logical perspective. All right, go to our next caller. We got Michael on the line. Michael, how you doing tonight?
Hanging in there tonight, sir, and yourself?
I am doing just fine. Good to hear from you. What's going on?
Not much. Everybody keeps talking about 3 potential teams from the SEC. I'm just trying to figure out how on God's green earth could that actually happen, and how asinine would that be? Maybe to the point people would turn off college football.
All right. Well, you say a lot of good things there, Michael, but you also say some things that are somewhat flawed. So you got some good things there. So it depends what you think the objective is. What is the objective of the playoff in your eyes? What do you want to
get the 4 best teams?
You want the 4 best teams. Well, 3 of the 4 best teams might be in the SEC.
Okay. But wouldn't the law averages balance it all out to where it would eliminate that's just like you literally
No. Hang on just a second. The law of averages are certainly not being played out in college football. Ohio State and Alabama and Georgia, and in other years, Clemson, Oklahoma, etc. The law of averages does not work in college football.
All right, strike that from the record. That's like you literally lame-based me this summer when I said
I
there's a
lambasted
chance.
you. Come on, Michael. You're one of my favorites.
Yes.
I never
When I
lambasted you.
said there is no possible way that both Michigan and Ohio State can make it to the college football playoff.
Oh, well, then I
Because-
guess I lambasted you.
Because one of those two teams would only be playing 12 games, while the other one would get the 13th game.
Sure.
And so that's what I'm trying to figure out. Process of elimination. How
Okay.
wouldn't that have to kick in?
No, not necessarily. Okay, so you're correct in that most of the time, those games, Alabama, Georgia in a championship game, or Alabama, Auburn, let's say playing in the same division, we've seen it, Ohio State, Michigan. Most of the time, those serve as elimination games because of the obvious. Because if you lose a game, you're in jeopardy of not making the playoffs. If you lose 2 games, you never make the playoffs. At this point, nobody's made the playoffs with 2 losses. So those have served to be elimination games at times. However, remember, we've got 2016. Ohio State did not win the Big Ten Eastern Division. They did not go to the championship game. They were 11-1, and they went to the college football playoff. In 2016, Alabama lost the Iron Bowl. They finished 11-1. They did not win their division. They were selected for the playoff. So it can happen. And then this past season, of course, we had an SEC championship game in which the loser still was selected to go to the playoff.
Yep, exactly. My point is another thing. I don't know if you've been reading other message boards, but how is it people thinking that if Texas runs the table, wins the Big 12 championship, they can get in there with 2 losses? I mean, come on, Mark. That's like saying Purdue, they shocked the world again, and they win the Big Ten championship, beat Ohio State. They're going to get it. I know that's not going to happen.
Well, you're right. It's not going to happen, but we can dream up scenarios in which it can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, okay, let's go the Texas route. Let's say, see, what you're bringing up is not off to a good start because let's say in the Pac-12, we've got an undefeated USC and UCLA team. So the longer they're able to go through the season undefeated, the greater the likelihood that we're going to have an undefeated Pac-12 champion or at least a 1-loss Pac-12 champion. So we've at least arrived at a spot 6 games into the season where we've got 2 undefeated teams in the Pac-12. But let's say between USC and UCLA and some other upsets along the line, Oregon involved, Utah involved, that the Pac-12 champion has 2 losses. Okay. And let's say that between Penn State, Michigan, and Ohio State, there's a team that emerges from the Big Ten Eastern Division with 1 loss, 11-1, and they lose the Big Ten championship game to Minnesota or Purdue or somebody. I'm just giving you ways in which teams can knock each other out and conferences can knock each other out to get us to a place where we could have a 2-loss champion, a 2-loss playoff. Yeah. But it's not. But you're right. You are totally right. It's not likely at all. Especially considering the dominance at this point in the season between Clemson, Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, and USC and UCLA. They haven't lost games yet. And we're going to see still more chaos, more upsets, and all of that. But those upsets and that chaos typically doesn't quite reach the elite. It reaches a whole lot of other places, but doesn't often reach the elite. So we've made it through halfway through the season, and we've got how many undefeated teams? Probably
like 20-some, I think, or
you might be down to
at
like
least
something like that. Yeah, it's something like that. And we've got 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We've got 9, I would say, that have a legitimate chance of finishing undefeated. You're right. Bottom line, you're right. They can dream up scenarios. And yes, I can dream up all sorts of scenarios. I can dream up a scenario in which Purdue could make the playoff. Yeah, which actually,
I know, but what would happen, and there's been some crazy seasons in the past before, Mark, where it's like, how would it happen to where like teams like USC, UCLA, Georgia, they all somehow lose 2, which I don't see happening.
Yeah.
Could it be that there won't be an undefeated team at the end of the season? Quite possibly. But then you're going to have another Pandora's box. How are you going to eliminate that? But no, do you ever think in our lifetime there will be a 2-loss team that makes the CFP?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, okay, you got to understand this, Michael. First of all, we're going to have a 12-team playoff in a few years. So obviously, yes, we're going to have 2-loss teams. We're going to have 3-loss teams at some point in the playoffs. But under the current 4-team format, yes, I believe that it would happen at some point. Consider that in 2017, Auburn was playing as the number 2 team in the country with 2 losses and was playing in the SEC championship game. So had they won the SEC title game, they would have had 2 losses and would have been in the playoff.
Yep. And another thing you brought up, was it 2016 where Penn State won the Big Ten championship?
Yes.
I remember giving you something that I looked back up. They got smoked by Michigan, but who was their other conference lost that year?
They lost out of conference to Pitt.
Or was it Pitt? I thought it was both conference losses. So had they not got smoked by Michigan, they would have won it at Ohio State, you think?
Oh, sure. Yes.
Okay. But last thing, how do you think it would work out for the Big Ten though? Say Ohio State does run the table, meets Purdue, and some guy by the grace of God, it's 2018 all over again. Purdue smokes them 49-20.
That's by the grace of God. That's by the grace of God. In your world, that's by the grace of God. Not my world. Okay, go ahead.
I know, but is there a chance that Michigan could leapfrog Ohio State, or do you think win or lose when Ohio State gets to the Big Ten championship, they got the spot locked up already?
If Ohio State beats Michigan, Michigan's going to leapfrog Ohio State?
No. I mean, it's just not necessarily Big Ten, but is there a chance to where a team who's undefeated plays like a 2-loss team, right? Okay, say maybe it's Alabama or maybe not even like Georgia or something like that. Maybe plays, I don't know, maybe Mississippi or Ole Miss or something like that. Which, I don't know, I think they're still undefeated, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah. Say like they end up with 2 losses, or maybe Mississippi State. I can't remember which of them has 2 losses. But one of those 2 smokes Georgia.
Yes.
Is that enough for maybe if Tennessee, who lost to Georgia, enough for Tennessee to leapfrog Georgia?
Okay, let me get this straight. You've got Mississippi State in the SEC championship game, correct?
Well, them or Ole Miss. Say like one of them has 2 losses. Yeah, somehow Bama falls apart.
Okay, a team with 2 losses is playing an undefeated team in the conference championship game.
Yes.
And the 2-loss team, of course, wins.
Yes.
Whether they would jump over the 1-loss team?
No, I'm saying the team, say for Purdue, for example, say like they go into Ohio State and they beat, like in Indianapolis, they blow out Ohio State.
Yes.
Could that be enough for Michigan to leapfrog them because of the way they lost in the championship game?
So you're saying Ohio State's undefeated in the championship game. They get blown out by Purdue. They're 12-1. They beat Michigan, who's sitting at home at 11-1, and they beat Michigan.
Yeah.
I would have a serious issue with the committee if they made that stupid of a decision. No, I don't see that happening.
I just want to run it past you, stuff like that. I mean, but committees made strange things before and stuff, dude. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, I don't have that much of an issue with the committee as much as a lot of people think I do. It's more with the system than the committee.
Okay. But I didn't know if there was a way to a team who's undefeated gets blown out of the conference championship, end up not even making this college football playoffs.
Well, yeah, that could happen, sure, because we have 1-loss teams not make the playoff, but they're not going to get jumped by a team that they just beat the week before.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I was just wondering stuff like that, dude. All right, so no live streams this week during football? The afternoon games?
I don't believe so, Michael. Maybe we'll set up what was suggested the other night. This is a pretty good idea where although I'm using my laptops quite a bit during the football games, but to set up set up a stream and everybody can chat during the games, and maybe I run the scores. Maybe
Yeah, because we talked about it. I brought it up with you the other night, and there was a lot of people who was interested in doing that.
Okay.
All right.
Well, I appreciate the idea, Michael.
Yep, and Mr. Greenshield's waiting behind me. All right,
Yes,
thanks,
yes.
Mark.
He's
See ya.
calls back, and Michael, I would never lambaste you. That would never happen.
Hey, sometimes I deserve it, sir. All right, thanks, Mark. Have a good one. See
Good
ya.
to hear from you. Our man Michael Hogue, who I would never lambaste, wouldn't do that. All right, I'm going to keep track tonight, and maybe I should do this going forward. I'm curious as to the fan bases of the people they call. We've got Ohio State and Purdue thus far. All right. Caller number 3, welcome into the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Oh, hey, how you doing, man? First time caller.
First time caller. Boy, I love to hear that. That makes my heart feel good. How you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Hold on. I'm just saying, hold on a second. I apologize. I got to put my shirt on. This is crazy things going on. Hold on one second.
All right. We could probably do without the play-by-play there. All right. So.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
You're back. You got your shirt on.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask about any other clothing item.
Well, no, I'm just having to deal with 2 kids right now.
Oh, you got the 2 kids. Very good. We can hear them. Are they college football fans? Can you get them a YouTube account so they can subscribe?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Get one each on YouTube with a subscription.
Well, I'll just say this. I'm looking forward to the Tennessee-Alabama game tomorrow. And I think it's going to be a great game. Yeah, basically what happened, my 10-month-old woke up and she's pitching a fit and my wife's having to deal with her.
I've been there. It's been so long ago I forget about it, but I've been there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Raise them right. It'll all work out. They'll make you proud one day.
Well, I'm doing right. But anyways, yes, I am ready for Saturday. And I put in the comments, I said there's actually a possibility where you have neither Georgia nor Alabama in the SEC championship. And people saying I'm crazy.
Well, it's unlikely, but you're not crazy, sir. You are not crazy. First of all, I'd like to know who you root for.
Tennessee.
Oh, Tennessee fan. Awesome. Well, great to have you here. I am very excited about Tennessee. It's been fun to watch a new team emerge, a team that, for somebody my age, I remember when Tennessee was a dominant football program.
Yeah.
A long time. They haven't won the SEC since 98.
Yep. And they went 3 times after that, 2001, 2004, and 2007.
Yeah, very close game. Very heartbreaking losses. Could have went to the national championship game, of course, in 2001.
Yeah, and see, that's the thing. Like, I feel like we're back. I feel like we finally got the right guy after 3 blunders. I feel like we finally really got the guy. And I've got a great feeling about this game. And my wife, she's a diehard Alabama fan.
Okay.
Or as we call them, Bammers. But
are you watching the game together?
Oh yeah, we're going to my mom's house. We're having a big cookout. It's going to be a big deal.
Nice.
I was going to take her to the game, but I'm not paying $400 a ticket.
Yeah, enjoy the game at home and relax, and you don't have to fight the traffic. And
oh yeah, I've been to Neyland Stadium too many times. I love that place, but that place is not set up for big events.
Okay.
And
I would hope it would be set up for big events.
It's mainly like a parking and street situation. Yeah. Like, it's not like the big NFL stadiums and stuff where you got all this parking and all that. Like, you're parking at dorms and you're parking behind restaurants and stuff like that.
I have never been to Knoxville. I've been to Chattanooga. That's
great.
I've been to Knoxville. How far away is Chattanooga from Knoxville?
About an hour and a half.
Okay. Got offered a job.
I was gonna say that's actually where I live in Chattanooga.
Really?
Yeah.
Yes, I was there one time. I was flown in, got offered a job in Chattanooga. That would have been like 2000.
Yeah, and And see, here in Chattanooga, you've got kind of a three-way mix. I mean, of course, it's mostly Tennessee fans,
Yep.
but you also have a lot of Georgia fans and a lot of Alabama fans.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
'Cause
very
you're-
close to the Alabama, or is it the Georgia state line?
Well, Chattanooga is actually on the Tennessee-Georgia border.
Okay.
But you can drive 15 minutes and you're in Alabama. So
Yeah. Now,
But-
back to me. Yep.
But what I was going to say, though, looking at both Alabama and Georgia, Alabama, what makes them great really is their linebackers. You know, when you got Will Anderson and Dallas Turner and Henry To'oTo'o to an extent, he can't cover a slant route. He couldn't do it at Tennessee, and I ain't seen much improvement with him at Alabama. But I feel like that's what's really causing Alabama's defense to be as good as it is. I think if you take those three cogs out of the machine, their defense isn't nearly as good because their secondary is not too great. And on offense, I mean, really, it's Bryce Young and Jahmyr Gibbs. They don't have like Jerry Jeudy, Jalen Waddle, you know, those legendary Alabama receivers. So that's why I'm not as high on Georgia and Alabama as a lot of people in the media and a lot of other people are. I mean, I'm just watching from what I see in terms of the playmakers. I feel like Tennessee has more playmakers.
Well,
And-
you're seeing mathematically what has to happen here. So on the Western Division side, somebody has to beat Alabama head-to-head, and then they've got to run the table otherwise. Unless
And
you
I think-
to lose multiple games. So,
Well,
like Ole Miss has to take down Alabama and then stay.
and they play in Oxford this year.
And they can lose another game then because they'll have the tiebreaker over Alabama, but that's just what has to happen,
Mm-hmm.
and that obviously doesn't usually happen.
And I'm high on Ole Miss and Mississippi State this year. I've been high on them since the preseason. And
I picked them both to go 9-3, but I wasn't quite as high as them contending for championships. But yeah,
well, not necessarily contending for a championship, but like they can possibly compete for the SEC West. Is like
no,
not
that's talking about. If you win the SEC West, you're playing in Atlanta in the SEC championship game. So aren't you a step away from? You're pretty much playing for.
Yeah,
a
you
playoff
got a point. And when it comes to Georgia, from what I've seen with Georgia's defense, they don't look as dominant as they did last year. But I mean, when you're replacing 7 first-round picks, it's kind of hard to be as good. And on offense,
So get your point. Yeah,
say again.
I think that's 5 NFL draft picks in the first round.
I thought somebody told me that they had 7.
7?
Or it might have been 7 draft picks
Yeah, so I think
total,
it's 7 draft picks. It's 5 in the first round.
which is insane.
Yes, it is. Absolutely.
But no matter how good you recruit, when you lose that much high-end talent at one time, it's very hard to replace it that year. It might take another year for them to get to that level again. And on offense, from what I'm seeing from Georgia's offense, I mean, really, if you take out Brock Bowers, I'm not that impressed. I mean, Brock Bowers is a huge difference maker. He's the reason that their offense can go as good as it does.
So it sounds like you think Tennessee's better than Alabama and Georgia.
Well, talent-wise, no, but scheme-wise, I think that they have actually a pretty good shot of beating both of them. Am I saying that they're going to? No, I think they'll beat one and lose to the other.
Okay.
But I think that both teams are not just at way above everybody else. Like everybody was saying going into this year, it was going to be the Georgia and Alabama show. They go undefeated, beat each other in the SEC championship, then beat each other in the national championship game, basically like last year. And I told everybody, I said, hold on. The SEC is going to be an absolute bloodbath this year. I was somewhat right, but it actually ended up being the Big 12.
Yeah, well, the bloodbath has not started yet. That doesn't mean it can't happen, but we're through half a season, and it has yet to occur.
But what do you think about that? Like the possibility of both Georgia and Alabama not making the SEC championship.
Both of them.
Both of them.
So Tennessee's the obvious choice in the East, and in the West,
Ole Miss or Mississippi State.
Yeah. I think that the West is better than the East still, but I think that Tennessee is the best candidate to knock off Georgia versus somebody knocking off Alabama, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I see where you're coming from. It's just seeing how they struggled on the road. I think that they might actually have a hard time in Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss has a better chance than Mississippi State because Mississippi State has to go to Tuscaloosa.
Yeah.
So,
well, yeah, for most college football fans that are sick of Georgia and Alabama, I think they would just be happy with one of them not making the conference championship game. But for both of them not to, I think that's a lot to ask. I don't expect that to happen. But is it possible? Sure, it's possible. All right, man. Well, we appreciate the call. You got anything else for us?
Oh, nothing much. I'm just ready for this Saturday, and I can't wait for the game.
All right. Have a good one. Enjoy the game.
Have a good one.
First-time caller, Tennessee fan. So that breaks up our Big Ten monopoly there by the first two callers. David Knight's here. That's good to see. David says, I am not saying this will happen, but what if TCU, USC, Ohio State go undefeated? I guess that's Ohio State. Yeah, because obviously TCU and Oklahoma State play. Go undefeated. Then Clemson as well. Georgia, Bama sustain one loss. What happens there is, in your opinion? Okay. All right. Ohio State's undefeated. They're in. Clemson's undefeated. They're in. USC and TCU are undefeated. Bama and Georgia. Ooh, wouldn't that be a scenario? I'm telling you what should happen. What should happen is that the SEC should be shut out of the playoff because we've got 4 undefeated teams. And that's the way these teams should be evaluated. Unless you're playing a group of 5 schedule. That's what it should be. If you're asking me what the committee is going to decide, well, Bama, Georgia sustaining one loss each tells us that they're playing in the conference championship game and one of them beat the other. So the team that was undefeated lost to the team that had one loss. So that eliminates one of them. So whoever lost the SEC championship game's gone. And that leaves Georgia or Alabama with one loss. I believe that either TCU or USC would get snubbed. If you believe in the whole conspiracy of brand names, then obviously that's going to be TCU a la 2014. And they're going to be left out of the playoff, especially since TCU's out of conference win was against Colorado and SMU. So not much credibility given to that non-conference schedule. So under your scenario, I would project that we would have a USC, Ohio State, Clemson in the winner of Georgia, Alabama playoff. All right. We got DeAndre on the line to talk some college football with us tonight.
Hey, Mark, how you doing tonight? Can you hear me?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. Give me 1 second.
Okay.
No, I'm good. My question is, I heard you talking to Jason, Florida State Jason,
Yes.
last night. So I want to ask a question. And I haven't did as much research as you. You have. But my question is this. From 1977 to 1992,
Yes.
Florida State and Clemson was probably on equal levels, correct?
77 to 92.
Right.
Yes.
Okay. So I think, I don't want to misquote him, but I think Jason has said that Clemson changed because of Florida State, which is everybody's goal, right? It's to be the best program. So
Yep.
some schools care about it more. Now, I think another comment that he made was that in the 90s, well, in the 80s, and my question is this. Well, it's not a question, it's more of a statement.
You with us, DeAndre? I think we lost
What
you.
a name. Georgia.
You're fading back.
They played Georgia a lot. I know Georgia was
DeAndre,
good in the early 80s and kind of fell off in the late 80s. But they beat everybody just like Florida State did. So how can he say, like, just that Dabo got there? I think I'm kind of misquoting him.
DeAndre, can you hear me?
That, they didn't take off. Like, Clemson wasn't there. Clemson was on probation. It couldn't be on TV because there was no probation. So and Florida State needed luck to beat Clemson in '87. So my question is like, I don't understand why he says that Clemson needed to come out to Florida State, and it was pretty much on the same.
Okay, DeAndre, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because probably the first 20 seconds you were cut out and we couldn't hear what you were saying, and then you kind of faded in, and I was trying to get you to back up, but you obviously couldn't hear me for a long time. So anyway, I think I got most of the gist of that. First, understand, DeAndre, that sometimes I'll let people ramble on and they aren't making a whole lot of sense, but it's just not a point in the show in which I'm going to stop them and correct them like I do most of the time. So I just let him finish his comment about whatever. So anyway, so his point, I believe, I shouldn't even speak for him, was that Florida State joined the ACC in '92, of course.
Right.
They were a great program. And during the '90s, obviously, Florida State, Nebraska, are we going to throw anybody else in there? I would say those were the two best programs in the country in the '90s. And so obviously nobody could beat Florida State for a long time in the ACC. They won almost every game. And I believe he was just making the point that it wasn't a very good conference most of the time with the likes of Georgia Tech and Maryland and all these teams that were Virginia, some of the better teams in the conference, but not very good. And Florida State raised the level of play or got other teams to be able to invest in football and raise the level of the conference. I don't know.
Okay, because I don't want to say I get upset when Florida State fans say that, because if you look at the last...
I had never heard that before myself.
Last 20 years between Florida State and Clemson.
Yeah.
Clemson's pretty much controlled the series. Just like the first 11 years. Okay, is it a 13-7? Clemson favorite? Because outside the
they've won the last 6.
Well, look before that. Before James Winston got there, I think Clemson had 1, 2, or 3 in a row, and then I think they had it. I don't have it written down right now, but if you go look at it on Wikipedia, you can see from 2002 to 2022, Clemson controlled the series. But it's like Florida State went on 11-game run in the 90s. You know what I'm saying? So I'm just saying, I just think that the narrative outside of Heisman Trophy winners, and I understand that they Florida State just joined the conference compared to where Clemson's been in the conference since 1952. Clemson has just as much success as Florida State has. And okay, I mean, you look at 3 national championships, right? It took every 11 years. I know you don't like national championships.
Well,
but however,
DeAndre, I think you get a great point. I'm not saying that you're off your rocker or anything like that. So Florida State joined the ACC in 1992. And I remember pulling out some kind of statistic here at some point that if you look at the number of conference championships that Florida State has won versus Clemson, since Florida State joined, that's not close.
Right. Right. And I totally agree with you. I'm not saying that you're wrong with that, because Florida State was dominant. But I would say, like when he says Dabo's a used car salesman, right?
Well, yeah. He doesn't like Dabo for other reasons.
Well, my point is,
he doesn't like Dabo because he's a rival coach and he doesn't like his faith beliefs.
Yeah, but but
all about.
If you look at, and this is what, This is my point. Look how Dabo Swinney and Bobby Bowden built their programs. They're very similar. Mickey Andrews started off at Clemson, and then he was at their peak. They both talk about family and religion, and both of them always talk about faith.
That's how they both built their program. Am I right? Are they talked about?
Well, DeAndre, for one thing, you're a little bit difficult to hear. I don't know if you're moving or whatever, but every so often, like
I'm sorry,
the audio from the phone call completely changes from being like, I don't know how to explain it, but goes from being muffled or faded to like sounding like you're in a tunnel. So anyway, yeah, I would love to build a database where we could plug in any time frame, any time period, and put two schools in there and just automatically just hit the button and say Florida State, Clemson, 77-92. Hit a button, and then it throws up every conceivable stat that you want to compare those two teams and those two programs. But here's my quick thought. My quick thought is that if we start in the late 70s, that from, like you say, from 1977 to 92, that those two programs are extremely close. Now, if you polled most college football fans off the street, they would think that Florida State was more successful, but they really weren't. I bet the win-loss percentage is really close. And then Florida State was the more dominant team and program, certainly for the next 10 years after that, 92 to 02. And then they fell off, but they were still, had some good seasons, but they were both pretty marginal for the rest of the 2000s up until roughly 2010. And then, of course, Florida State was better for a few years, and Clemson's been way better for 7 years.
Yeah. Okay, Mark, I'll let get somebody else to talk. But, but look at it. Look at, when you get a chance, look at closer to Florida State for 2002 to now. Close out of the last 20 games, Clemson's won majority of them, 13 to 7, I believe. And there's always been gaps in there where Florida State will win outside of James Winston years. And you'll see that Clemson probably had Clemson's been dominating that series recently. I mean, not just recently, but the last 20 years. So, I mean, I don't know if you look at 13 to 7 as being dominant, but I mean, Clemson has.
It's pretty dominant. Yeah.
So, but
all right,
okay, Mark.
I appreciate it. All right. Appreciate everybody being here. David, thank you so much for the contribution. And of course, I will remind everyone, since David has reminded me that the Super Chat is available. So if you would like to contribute, you can contribute there, or you can go to, as it says there on the ticker, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Search MarkRogersTV, Venmo, PayPal, and Cash App. Okay. Otherwise, we got the Amazon link. Man, this Amazon link, I'm going to go on a tirade for just about 15 seconds, and we'll get back to college football. Because understand, when you watch ESPN, you're watching like 40% commercial and promotional content. So we can come in here with like a 0.5%. If people would use the Amazon link, this would not cost you anything. You would do exactly what you do anyway. And you would use the Amazon link that we provide, and you would have the same shopping experience. And let's say on a $100 purchase, you don't need to spend $100. This is an example. Spend $100 on Amazon. We here at the Voice of College Football, we may get $2. We may get $6. It depends on the product. Something in that range. $2 or $3, $5 maybe, $6. So that could be considerable, considering that we've got quite a few people here from time to time that enjoy what we do. So grab the Amazon link in the description section. And you know what? I totally understand that you forget about this. Because you know what? You know how many people I like on YouTube that I forget to hit the like button? Do it all the time. But I do it more so now because I ask all of you to hit the like button because it's important to YouTube channels. So please hit the like button and grab the Amazon link. Put it somewhere where you will remember it. There's a lot of W's there, where you will remember it, and that will help us build the channel. All right, back to college football. We got David on the line. David, how are you?
To the man that gives college football its voice, one of the hardest working men in college football, Mark Rogers. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Excellent. I'm excited. I don't have to worry about the Buckeyes this weekend, so I can just focus on what looks to be a great and exciting weekend of college football. Want to talk to you about a couple of these games. Didn't get a chance to early in the week talk to you about Tennessee and Alabama. I heard the Tennessee caller earlier, and I wanted to make a few points about this game. First of all, I wanted to say, for the importance of getting to Atlanta, one would think that Tennessee would be looking more towards the Georgia game than this game. Correct?
Well, sure, it's a more important game. Absolutely. Yeah. They can lose to Alabama and beat Georgia and go to Atlanta. They cannot beat Alabama and lose to Georgia, most likely, and go to Atlanta.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm just, I know that there's a lot of hype for this game, for obvious reasons. You're playing Alabama, you're at home, you're playing really good football right now. I get it. I'm just, thinking of if the long-term goal is what the long-term goal, and the goal from the caller earlier was talking about the ability of Tennessee to get to Atlanta. So, and it's interesting because pretty much Georgia's two games left are Kentucky and Tennessee, and that's pretty much it before they would get to Atlanta.
Georgia's got a trip to Mississippi State.
Do they have Mississippi State on the schedule?
Yes.
I didn't think they had Mississippi State. I thought that they had just had...
Let me double check.
Yeah, I thought that they had just had...
Georgia goes to Mississippi State on November 12th. They actually
that's right. Okay. Yeah, I just saw that.
Mississippi State, Kentucky, 4 consecutive weeks. So that's
a
fairly difficult stretch.
Yeah, because what's interesting to me, and I do want to talk about this game real quick, and then I was going to give some situation scenarios as well for the playoff too. But the interesting thing for me, and the caller kind of talked a little bit about this, but the other thing about this game that I find interesting is Hooker seems to be the type of quarterback, especially with his athleticism, his wheels, that traditionally gives Alabama's defense a lot of problems. I don't know if you found that to be a fair statement. I know this is a very good Alabama defense. I know the caller talked about how good the linebacker play was, but just from the types of quarterbacks that have given Saban defenses problems in the past, how do you see Hooker maybe comparable to those types of quarterbacks that we've seen in the past cause them problems?
So I see it this way. I see it as that became a narrative because of Tim Tebow, Cam Newton, Johnny Manziel. Mm-hmm. And that was at a point in college football where there were certainly mobile quarterbacks and dynamic quarterbacks, but that was a little bit more the exception than the rule at that point. And I would argue without, and you know me, David, I would love to be able to do some extensive research and say, okay, let's break down all these elite defenses across the country. And when they've lost, when they've given up big yardage games, who's been the quarterback and what style of quarterback has that been versus when they play their dominant level of defense.
Right.
I tend to think that those type of quarterbacks are simply giving everyone problems.
Yeah, and Hooker's been really good so far this year against everybody. So, it's not just Alabama, but that's obviously that was the thought process for the longest period of time. Is it takes a hot quarterback, a big time quarterback, to usually break through against those Alabama teams. Which stands to reason. Football's a quarterback driven sport more now than ever.
Yes, and Hendon Hooker is, for me, for the style of quarterback that I think is most effective, right in my lane. because he is a pass-first guy. He's looking downfield. That's what he wants to do, but he's not shy about taking off and running. He's not Michael Vick, but he's extremely capable. He's in the top 10% of quarterbacks when it comes to running ability, elusiveness. So he is a threat.
See, I had heard that Tennessee might be down a receiver this week. Tillman, the one receiver, that's
Yes.
a pretty good player. Pretty sure he's not going to be playing. I don't know if you're Tennessee people or if you're thinking that's going to be a big loss for them.
I actually think he's going to play based on what I've heard.
Oh, okay. I heard maybe not.
But yeah, maybe not. But
Yeah.
He hasn't been playing for I don't know how many weeks. It's been quite a while. But I'm hearing that he may be on the field. Now, we know what the deal is there, though. He could be limited to 15 or 20 plays.
Right.
They may just want to get him on the field. He is their best receiver. They may want to get him on the field just to draw some attention, make him a decoy, try him out, test him out, see if he's effective. So that's exactly what I said. I posted a preview video, and I said he's supposed to play from what I hear. But how effective is he going to be? How much are they going to play him? Are they going to use him as a decoy?
Mm-hmm. Conversely, the other side, how Bryce Young, I mean, he's going to be even close to where he needs to be. And where's this passing game going to be, compared to where it's been, early in the year so far? Obviously, a lot of people have been talking about the lacking of wide receivers. I mean, I do think Gibbs might be the most electric player in college football right now, by the way. I have to say that. But
you bring up a great point there, David, because it's not just about Bryce Young, but it's about how effective he's going to be, how healthy he is. Because if this were 2 or 3 years ago, we could say, okay, he could be Bryce Young at 80%, and receivers are going to pluck those balls out of the air. Maybe he's not quite as sharp, but they're going to pluck balls behind them. They're going to make difficult catches to bail him out. But these receivers, they don't catch his best throws sometimes. I don't think they're capable of bailing him out, making him look better, picking up the slack. They haven't shown that ability.
Right. The interesting thing will be, and this is kind of where the gauntlet of their schedule gets, because they're going to get, Mississippi in a couple of weeks, I know they've got to go to Ole Miss, and then they have Mississippi State at home coming up here in the next 3 to 4 weeks, right, Mark?
Yes.
Okay. So, it's interesting to me. And by the way, I wanted to get to one other game too, and then I'm going to give you some playoff scenarios here. Clemson this week at Florida State. Now we're a believer that Clemson may have kind of righted the ship a little bit or looked better after that NC State game. Where are you on them right now?
I had a segment record with our buddy Steve Merrill today.
Yeah.
And we've kind of changed up our approach each week, and we're going through all the games of all the team channels. So we're taking on all those various matchups. And I was stunned when he said his math model says it's a pick'em game. It's a toss-up.
Wow.
I don't see that. I just don't, with my eyes, I don't see that. I saw Clemson just dominate the game for the last half and a few minutes against North Carolina State. I didn't see that out of Florida State. I saw Wake control the game against Florida State. I saw Clemson and Wake play a back and forth, flip coin kind of game. And I've seen Florida State struggle, but defeat some marginal teams. And those were Clemson's tests of the season, and they've laid waste to everybody else. I don't see it like that.
Yeah, the interesting thing is, I struggling against Wake Forest, especially with, Hartman being a solid quarterback and the receivers they have at Wake Forest, I don't think, was necessarily a huge surprise. Now, maybe, Wake putting that many points on the board is obviously concerning for their defense, but, they got through it. And, we talked after the NC State game, which are the two games I've watched Clemson play, Wake Forest and NC State. And they looked a lot better against NC State than they had, earlier in the year against some of their other opponents. And I know you kind of felt that way after that game as well.
I did. Now, I would have to admit, then I did watch the NC State-Florida State game, and even though NC State pulled that game out,
yeah,
I wasn't overly impressed with them. And then even against Clemson, and giving Clemson full due on defense, that NC State team's a good team, but they don't have a bunch of playmakers on that offense. They've got like one running back and one receiver.
Right.
The rest of those guys are just kind of filling slots and catching the passes that come to them, but they're really not affecting the game.
Hey, one thing I was going to ask you, did your Clemson people ever find there to be a quarterback controversy there between Ungalele and I have a hard time pronouncing the other quarterback. Is it
Klubnik?
Klubnik, yes.
They don't think we got there. We didn't get to that point because now there was a little rumbling in the fan base after week one, if you recall. DJ didn't look good,
right?
Really the whole game, but he played a little bit better in the third and fourth quarters when Clemson pulled away. But their offense, it's only a 14-10 game midway through the third quarter, and then Klubnik came in for 2 series, and he was just throwing darts and rolling out, looking confident and looking good. But Dabo squashed that after the game, and they really haven't looked back since.
Yeah, I mean, Dabo's been down that road before. I had to make that decision at one time. It turned out the right way for him, obviously, that year. Obviously, if they get through this one, Syracuse coming up, probably a good chance they can get through the rest of their schedule, with these being the toughest games probably coming up left on their regular season schedule, I would think, right, Mark?
Yeah, for as much as I would like to believe in Syracuse, they're paper thin.
I do too.
Challenging anything. All you have to do is watch them play. They should have lost to Virginia's a bad football team, and they could have won at Syracuse very easily. Last play of the game, in that game, don't know if you saw that, it was a Friday night game. Brennan Armstrong had a wide open, so it's 4th and 5, let's say 4th and 8, something like that. Brennan Armstrong has a wide open receiver right under his nose, guy in the flat. And he tries to make some NFL crazy split the coverage, throw it 22 yards, and that's the ball game. He could have just dumped it down, and they were in field goal range. They would have won the game. They lost by 2. Yeah, I just, I give them all the credit. I think it's a great story. I love it that Syracuse is undefeated this late in the season. And wouldn't it be great if they beat NC State tomorrow? Then that's a legitimate win. Then they play Clemson. They're 6-0, and it's something to talk about. And they beat a pretty good Purdue team. Now they needed a little smoke and mirrors and help from the refs to do it. But
we talked about that one, Mark. Yeah, the refs kind of handed it to them. Yep.
Even if they should have lost the game, they were in the game against what I think is a top 25 team.
Yeah, you said that. I know Noon was struck by that today on Buckeye Talk. By the way, yeah, I actually think now, and I'll say this as an Ohio State fan with a little bit of concern of our corners right now. I think Jones and O'Connell would, with that passing game, would cause our defense some problems. Now, they wouldn't be able to stop us, obviously, but, I think O'Connell and Jones could cause our pass defense some problems.
I would say that Purdue probably has the 4th, 5th, maybe 5th or 6th best defense in the Big Ten. They're not bad.
Yeah. They haven't seen it. I mean, offensively, where Ohio State's at, right? No. Executing right now. But, yeah, but no, I definitely think their passing game could cause some problems with, O'Connell's been solid, and, Jones has been, putting up some big-time numbers at receiver. So, want to throw out a few playoff situation scenarios, okay?
Yep.
And I just want to run through a few of these. Okay, so let's just say Clemson does go undefeated. Now, are you a believer that a 1-loss Clemson winning the ACC is still very likely to get in, or do you think it's, obviously it would be that much more of a closed case if they were undefeated, but do you still have a high percentage of Clemson getting in as a 1-loss champion? Let's just say
it's a pretty solid percentage, but that leaves them vulnerable. They will have lost a conference championship game, or they will have lost to Syracuse or Miami, or who? Who's
Right.
left? I guess Florida State might be the best team that they're going to play in the regular season left. So that loss, I'm sorry, David.
Go ahead. No, I'm sorry.
That
You
loss
go ahead,
is
Mark.
going to be pretty marginal. That's going to be a pretty marginal loss.
Yeah, and you look at the rest of their schedule and the quality victories, and you're kind of okay. Let's just say they go undefeated, okay, and then I'll create another scenario in a minute. But let's say they go undefeated. Ohio State goes undefeated, so those are the two spots. Clemson and Ohio State have 2 of the spots, 4 spots, okay. And then we're left with 1-loss conference champions in the Pac-12 and in the Big 12. Okay.
Okay.
And then, 1-loss Alabama defeats undefeated Georgia in the title game. Is it a foregone conclusion that Georgia losing that game still gets in over the 2 1-loss conference champions in the Pac-12 and in the Big 12?
Clemson, Ohio State, and Bama beat Georgia. And what's Bama's record?
Well, Bama has a loss, but they win the SEC championship, so they're obviously already in.
Bama's in. So it's between Georgia as a 1-loss non-champion versus the other 2.
Yes.
I think that
let's test some SEC bias here, one way or another. I'm kidding.
I think that if you root for the Pac-12 and the Big 12, you're going to be looking for your best resume to hopefully be that team that's going to emerge. Your best resume / depending on your conspiracy theory, your best brand. So UCLA playing the garbage that they played in the non-conference, TCU, the garbage that they played in non-conference play. They don't have another win. Georgia's got they've got the Oregon win that was just a demolition, and they're going to have a win against it seems like a joke, but Georgia Tech, who might go 7-5 and be in the running for the ACC Coastal. Who knows?
See, the interesting thing with me also is if Clemson's a 1-loss team, then how do they look compared to the Big 12 champion, the Pac-12 champion?
Oh, yeah, they shouldn't get a free pass here by any stretch. No, not at all. With the upgrade in level of play of the Pac-12 and the Big 12. But look at Georgia's wins, David. If that is the scenario and they lose to Bama,
yes,
Kentucky, Tennessee, Oregon, Georgia Tech, Mississippi State, Auburn, not great, but they've got 5 or 6 quality wins there.
Right. So it sounds like you're of the belief that the Pac-12 champion or the Big 12 champion better be undefeated to get that nod over Georgia.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to be clear on that. Now, are you sure that you would be positive that an undefeated Big 12 or Pac-12 champion would get that nod over a 1-loss Georgia, though?
I sure hope so, because they've got the better record and they've got the conference championship. I hope we haven't gotten to that point where the committee's going to make that move. Then you kind of throw up your hands and say, now there has to be a 2-game advantage of another conference champion to get in over an SEC 2 seed. Wow, that's saying a lot. But unfortunately, when you look at the Big 12 and the Pac-12, you're looking at a bunch of awful non-conference schedules.
Right.
Nobody can say we're the Ohio State team of 2016 that went to Norman, Oklahoma and beat a top 7 or 8 team in the country. Nobody has that win. Nobody's scheduled like that. Well, Texas did, but they lost to Alabama.
Right. Well, but here's the thing, though, Mark. I mean, the Big 12 and the Pac-12 have been better conferences than people thought they would be.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I think much better conferences than people thought they would be, and more competitive, and with more, at least top 20 teams than we thought we'd have maybe at this point, right?
Yes. However, my Pac-12 contingent here is going to hate me for it because I have drowned them with a lot of love.
Yep.
And it's been earned here.
They got their own channel now, Mark. Their own show.
Yes, they're taking over.
Yeah.
Voice of college football here. They got Wednesday night to themselves, and oh heck yeah, they're all over the place.
Yeah.
But some of these wins have been tarnished to a certain extent. You know, Michigan State, Wisconsin.
I think we're gonna have some chaos. I do.
Florida. I hope you're right. I hope you're right.
I see where you're coming from. Now, once you lined up all the Georgia wins, I get it. So, I mean, if you're a Pac-12 or Big 12 team, to not get the as being a one, but you know what? Here's the other thing too, Mark. You put a lot of emphasis on conference championships. You're one of those people that says conference championships should mean something, right?
Yes, we're playing a regionalized sport where we're not playing the NFL. It's not the NFL.
Well, we're not playing a regionalized sport for very much longer, Mark. Once USC and UCLA come to the Big Ten.
We're not, but you know what I mean. Even then, there's not enough games and there's too many teams involved. So you don't have that. If tomorrow or next season, the NFL said, we're going to have a committee that's going to select teams, and then fans can go crazy and try to figure out what they're going to select and have their own selections. If they went the college football route, we could sit here and say, well, the Chiefs beat, and we could cross-reference everybody's wins and losses and have a pretty clear, we would either have a clear-cut comparison or we would be like, well, these teams are very comparable, but at least we would know they're comparable because they play all the same teams and it's so close. But we are guessing, we are really stretching based on one result or two results here to compare the Pac-12 and the SEC, for example.
I agree. I think you're pro chaos. I'm pro chaos. As long as this, and I want to make one last point on the playoff.
Yeah.
If Ohio State's undefeated and the SEC champion has a one loss, Ohio State's still the 1 seed, though, right?
Oh, if Ohio State's undefeated and the SEC champion has one loss,
yes,
absolutely, they better be the
okay.
1 seed.
Just want to be clear on that.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I mean, you know, we've lived in a crazy world in the past. You know, but I am pro chaos. I just want to say this, by the way, early. I'm going to be taking a look at Mark Rogers' picks, but I'm riding the team up north this week, minus the 7. And I'm looking, the Pac-12 guys talk me out of the over in the Utah-USC game. I don't know if that game's going over 65. What's your feel on that?
65. USC's offense hasn't been quite as prolific as we thought. They're playing at Utah 65. So if we get I tend to lean on the low end, on the under.
All right.
I'm looking like a low 30s to a high 20s, like a 31-27 game.
Okay.
Something more in that range.
Which would be
sure. By the way, David, if you care to check them out, what we're doing now is we got these segments with Merrill all over the place on the various channels because you bring up the Penn State Michigan game, and he loves Michigan. His math model has Michigan by 13.
Yeah, I said 10 or 11 points, so I'm thinking that's what I'm gonna ride. That's gonna be one of my picks this week. Well, after last week, I should be riding Mark Rogers' picks with that tremendous record you had, my friend.
Well, we hopefully are breaking free from 500 and moving on. Yeah.
All right. Well, as always, it's a pleasure to talk college football. You're going to do the wrap-up show on Saturday, right, Mark?
Absolutely, David. We will be here.
Well, I might have to get back together and talk some college football with you then, my friend.
Always look forward to it.
A pleasure.
Thanks, David. Our man, David Greenshield, our second Buckeye caller tonight. And I'm curious our number of callers and what fan bases they represent. So I'm going to start keeping track of this. We got Ohio State, Purdue, Tennessee, Ohio State, Clemson is what we're looking at. Now this is great because we've got not only an Indiana rep, but it's Jeffrey. Jeffrey's here. How you doing tonight, sir?
Hey, I'm doing good. I'm glad. Thank you so much for getting me back on here and all that. I don't know what happened with that, but thanks so much.
Yeah, I don't know anything about that either. I don't know what to tell you about that, but Tony told me about it, and I just had to give you some kind of approval, but
yeah, but thanks a lot. I'm so glad I'm back. Thank you so much, because again, I wrote so many comments. I think I've been gone for about a month, and I wrote so many comments thanking all the subs that I got when people were saying I subbed to Jeffrey's channel when you guys put the link in the chat, and I don't think anybody saw it. So all the ones that did, thank you so much. But now to football. It's kind of funny that I was talking to you about the offensive line for Indiana and how bad it was. And then the very next day, they fire offensive line coach Darren Hiller, which, again, should have been done a long time ago. I don't like when anybody gets fired, but it should have been done a long time ago. But do you think that if IU loses to Maryland, do you think that their chances for bowl eligibility are completely gone?
So IU right now is 3-3, correct?
Yes, sir.
3-3. Lose to Maryland, they go to 3-4. Okay, they got to win 3 games. We know they still have to play Rutgers, Ohio State, Michigan State. They could win that game. Purdue, Penn State. That's the 5 left.
It would have to be Purdue, Rutgers, and Michigan State. Yeah.
Purdue, Rutgers, Michigan State. Yeah. More than likely, they can't win all 3 of those games. Of course, I think Purdue's a better team, but you know that rivalry has certainly sprung some upsets.
Yeah, I just think it's interesting because I wonder if if Tom Allen had to fire Darren Hiller before the season, I just really wonder if Indiana would at least maybe have won the Nebraska game. I don't know. Again, their 2 best receivers were out in that game, but again, the Michigan game, they could have hung with Michigan if the offensive line had just protected Bazelak a little bit better. They did a terrible job in the second half. They had no chance, and it's just unfortunate because Indiana has a lot. Now, I'm not saying obviously they're one of the more talented teams in the Big Ten, but they have more talent than they used to. And Indiana's offensive line back when Peyton Ramsey was quarterback was a lot better than it is now. And Indiana has way better skill position players than they had then. And they're playing a lot worse because of it, because the offensive line is so bad. So if they can get that cleaned up, Indiana could be a better team. But on a different note, I think it's kind of funny. I don't know what you think about this, but obviously, again, scheduling is scheduling. But I think it's funny that you got Michigan State, Wisconsin on Fox, but then you've got NC State, Syracuse on the ACC network. You've got Kentucky and Mississippi State on the SC network. And I know that these are done a couple weeks in advance, but man, that's messed up.
Yeah, let's see this. So, well, it's money driven. So, well, look at, what's a slap in the face. This is just, but they're bad. So they have no excuse, but Miami, Virginia Tech's on ESPN 3. It's on the app. That, everybody pretty much plays on national TV now, that if you get relegated to the app, you suck. So anyway, they're both awful. Maryland, Indiana on ESPN2. So what are you pointing out here? Let's see. Wisconsin, Michigan State on Fox at 4. Yeah.
I was saying how NC State and Syracuse is on the ACC network, and I was talking about how Kentucky, Mississippi State's on the SEC network, but you have Wisconsin, Michigan State on Fox, stuff like that.
Well, you got to understand there that those are 2 completely different contracts. What Fox does with its properties versus ESPN is obviously ABC, ESPN, ESPN2, all the ESPN properties, plus the ACC network, plus the SEC is all under ESPN, versus Fox is selecting from its own selection of games, which Fox basically has the Big Ten, the Big 12, and the Pac-12. And then there's this crossover where Fox and ABC/ESPN gets to pick the best Big Ten games. And that's why you see Notre Dame, Ohio State. That's considered a Big Ten game because they're in a Big Ten stadium, and ABC got that game because that was the second pick of the schedule. Fox makes the number one pick each year for the Big Ten, and they've ever since they've had that in their rights. That's been since 2017. They've selected Ohio State and Michigan at the beginning of the year. They want to lock that game in. And then ABC gets to pick next. ABC/ESPN gets to pick next. And they picked Ohio State, Notre Dame. And then I think then it went back to Fox, and they picked Ohio State, Penn State. Then it went back to ABC, ESPN. And they must have taken, I don't remember what they would have taken after that. Anyway, they don't run through the whole schedule, but they like the top 10 games, something like that, is an alternate between Fox and ABC, ESPN. But other than that, they kind of go into their own silos there. Yeah, Michigan State's horrible, and Wisconsin's not much better, but because they play in the West, they still kind of have some life to their season. But yeah, interesting.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% there. I know, the contracts with the Big Ten on Fox and everything. I understand that, but I'm just talking about how you got two ranked games on the ACC network and the SEC network, but then you've got like on ESPN, you've got Florida LSU. And I know it's the brands, you're right, because TCU, Kansas, they were both ranked, but that was on FS1. But then you had Michigan, Indiana was on Fox, and that was only because of Michigan. Michigan's been on Fox 3 noons in a row. And obviously, we know Michigan could be a playoff team, but it's like you said, it's all about the money drives it. It's not anything else. I agree with you 100% there.
Yeah, you're a real college football fan, so you would rather see TCU and Kansas, and so would I. And look at that Michigan-Indiana game as like, why is that on Fox? But again, they're drawing for the periphery audience and trying to get as many eyeballs as possible. Yep.
I agree with you. It stinks, but it is what it is. On another interesting note, on the game that just occurred, no one's talking about. You got David, the headset guy, talking about the playoff again, which I think is funny. But again, you got like the game that just happened, West Virginia and Baylor. Who did you pick to win that game on your picks?
I did not pick that game. I just didn't pick it. I didn't like run away from it. I just didn't. I've been typically waiting so long to pick the Saturday games is that I haven't picked many Friday games unless they have ranked teams. Then I'm obligated to kind of self-obligated to pick those. But I didn't select that game.
Well, I made a video on it, and I picked Baylor. And man, if Baylor had not fumbled the ball, Blake Shapen fumbling that ball, and West Virginia taking it all the way back, that hurt them. And then he gets knocked out of the game. Man, I can't stand when stuff like that happens because it's like Baylor is the better team. Sorry, Joey Foster. I know he's a West Virginia fan, but man, it's like I'm just saying that Baylor is the better team and they would have won. But again, that's football, and the better team does not always win. That's why it's tough to do predictions in the first place.
Oh, it's tough to do predictions, and you should try doing them against the spread. that would totally drive you nuts because that is just, you can be totally on a game, totally think, okay, this game's going exactly the way I thought, and you get some backdoor touchdown that's completely meaningless to the outcome of the game, but it screws up your prediction. Happens all the time.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. That's why I try to avoid it. Maybe I'll try to incorporate that in future videos, maybe if I can, but I'm not really good at that stuff. And to me, it would make it way harder, and my record would look a lot worse than your 17-5 that you had last week, which I did hear, and I'm sorry I cut out, but our internet's been struggling, so that's why I cut out. And I just cut out. You probably saw me freeze just now, and I had to, blank my camera and come back, but it is what it is. Maybe we'll get better internet soon. I don't know. But another thing I think is interesting, UCF blew out Temple and 70-13. And I think it's interesting because of the fact that you have like UCF, if they play Louisville now, UCF would beat them, I think.
Yeah, well, you bring up an interesting point, and, we'll never know. But teams change throughout the season. So I'm a big believer that whatever the score was at that time, that's the distinction. That's the, delineation we have to make between those two teams. If they played the first week of the season and that was the final score, well, that the team that won the game should be given some kind of preference in terms of a comparison. But you're right, teams change. Most get better throughout the season because they play together and they get better, but some teams regress. They get hurt, they get banged up, they just lose something. They were fresher early, and teams change throughout the season. There's no question about that.
Mm-hmm. That's an interesting point. I think now Dylan Gabriel, is he still out for the Oklahoma game with Kansas? Is he still out?
We cut a segment with our guy Parker Thune from 247 Sports today, who knows a ton about Oklahoma football, and he believes that Dylan Gabriel is going to play.
Okay, because if Dylan Gabriel is not able to play, Oklahoma has absolutely no chance to beat Kansas because they are anemic on offense with Davis Beville. I can't even begin to just my eyes are like, I watch in Oklahoma for the last decade putting up 50 points, and now suddenly they're getting 0. It's just insane. And if Dylan Gabriel is available to play, I think Oklahoma can hang. I did not do a video on it because Kansas, I try to stay away from the ranked teams. But again, I don't think Oklahoma is going to have a chance unless Dylan Gabriel is 100% and he's playing well, because Oklahoma's defense is bad.
Oklahoma's a 9-point favorite.
I didn't even know that. They shouldn't be.
Crazy, isn't it?
It's kind of like you were talking about to me earlier about a couple weeks ago about Indiana, Nebraska, and I was like, why is Nebraska favorite? Like you said, it takes the odds makers a very long time to find out that a team's not good.
Well, yeah, I agree with what you're saying there, but I don't think it's so much that that they're clueless to what's going on, but they don't react the way we react, the way fans react to one score. They're not going to have their minds changed and they're also knowledgeable about what the betting public thinks. And there are still people now, why anybody would be betting on stuff that they know nothing about, I don't know. But there are people out there that just want to bet on some college football games over the weekend, and they see Kansas and Oklahoma, and they're going to grab Oklahoma. They're just going to.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't even touch that game. That's no. Another point, do you think that Alabama has a better chance to lose to Tennessee if Bryce Young is not healthy or not playing?
Well, of course, he's got to be healthy to some degree to be effective in the game, but an 80% Bryce Young is better than a 100% Jalen Milroe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Alabama got extremely lucky last week that they played, again, like I said, on the Saturday night show, that they played Texas A&M instead of having to play Tennessee with Jalen Milroe, because if they played Tennessee with Jalen Milroe, I don't think, especially on the road, I don't think Alabama would have any shot. But since Texas A&M's not good, and, obviously they're way better than Indiana. So when I'm saying not good, they're not good compared to what people – they were ranked 6th to start the season. So they're not good because they have the top 5 talented roster, top 10, whatever, and they're not good. So Alabama squeaked by at home in front of a very scared fan base, which, again, if Indiana was beating Texas A&M by like 4, they'd be like happy as heck. But you got Alabama fans like about to, have to go to the hospital if they had a stroke. But I mean, again, different expectations. But I'm just like, man, you got Alabama barely beating them. And again, if Jalen Milroe was playing, I agree with 100% that they wouldn't beat Tennessee. Which you didn't say that, but you're talking about Bryce Young being 80% is better. I agree with that. I just thought it was an interesting question because good and well that Nick Saban is going to do everything in his power to have Bryce Young play in this game because he knows he has to have him to win. He knew he didn't have to have him against Texas A&M, and it was a lot closer than he thought. But he has to have him against Tennessee to win.
Yeah, he pretty much uncovered that. I didn't watch his news conference this week, but he made some comments after the game on the sideline, right after the game, and he made about 3 references to having a healthy quarterback. The reporter said, we know you don't want to talk about Tennessee, that, this game just ended and you're just want to celebrate with your team and you're happy that you won, blah, blah, blah. But, looking ahead to Tennessee, some keys to beating Tennessee. And he made some kind of comment about having a healthy quarterback. So, absolutely.
I think it was really interesting that, that Wisconsin, I know Northwestern's bad, but I think it was really interesting that Wisconsin blew out Northwestern like they did with Jim Leonard in his first game as the interim head coach or whatever. I mean, all I know is I didn't watch any of the game, but seeing the statistics, you had Graham Mertz. And Graham Mertz is a guy that you see his stats, and it's like Spencer Petras at Iowa. It's like 150 yards, a touchdown, 2 interceptions or whatever. He threw for 5 touchdowns. Did Jim Leonard unleash the offense? Did he actually do what everybody else is doing, like Illinois with Brett Bielema, which is why Illinois is winning? Did they open it up or something?
Northwestern's terrible.
I know, but still, they blew them out 42-7.
Yeah, I get what you're saying there. I don't know. Let's understand that Graham Mertz threw 5 touchdown passes his very first collegiate game against Illinois. He's capable. He's got the arm to do it. It's just more him making bad mistakes against good defenses. And Northwestern does not have a good defense. Northwestern is a horrible football team.
Well, I agree with you. I was just I don't know if you saw any of the game because I didn't either. But no. I was just wondering if they changed the way they've played. Because to me, that's my problem with Wisconsin football and Iowa football and even Illinois, which now Illinois figured it out. But it's like, again, and no one cares about basketball, but it's like, to me, watching Indiana basketball play, because I watch Indiana basketball a lot because of the football and the basketball, so whatever. But Indiana basketball, when Archie Miller was the head coach, they ran a boring 1980-style offense, and they couldn't win even though they had talented players. Wisconsin, Iowa, and Illinois football, not Illinois anymore, but they have talent, but they don't play the way everybody else is playing. Alabama changed because they knew they had to stop just running the football and giving it to the tight ends. It's spread offense now. And you got, like Iowa, Charlie Jones, a wide receiver for Iowa, which he's now at Purdue. He left because of the fact that Iowa's offense was boring. It's like the offense is bad, okay? In my opinion, I'm not trying to trash Iowa, but, man, Brian Ferentz, Kirk Ferentz's son, in my opinion, should have never been promoted from tight ends coach, just like Nick Sheridan should have never been promoted from tight ends coach to offensive coordinator at Indiana. I don't think tight ends coaches make good offensive coordinators because of the fact that they run – the tight ends are more inside the box. They're going to be more focused on a running offense, and it just doesn't work like that anymore unless your offensive line is really good. And people have talked about Stanford's offensive line is no good anymore, and that's why they're not any good. And Indiana's offensive line is bad. And I'm not saying that Wisconsin and Iowa's offensive lines are bad, but when you know every single play what they're going to do, first down run, second down run, 3rd and 8, throw the ball and complete, and then you punt, it just doesn't get it done. And to me, even though everybody gives Spencer Petras flack at Iowa because he stinks, I don't think he's that great of a quarterback either, but he would do better if they would just open up the offense, in my opinion.
Well, I do think that, number one, for entertainment's sake, and I'll speak for myself, I like to see variety. So when there were 51-48 games, but they were infrequent in college football, I thought that they were exciting because they were an aberration. It was different. It was fun. It was, did you see that game? It was 51-48. That was exciting. There were all sorts of points. But then we got to a point in college football, especially in conferences like the Big 12, let's say 7 or 8 years ago, where 51-48 was every game. And to me, that was boring as hell because when I see a 51-48 game, I want to see a 51-48 game because the execution is so good. The quarterbacks are so good they can throw in tight windows. The receivers are high pointing the football. They're wrestling the ball away from defensive backs. It's because the offense is exceptional. Most of the 51-48 games we see isn't because the offense is great. It's because the defenses suck. They can't tackle. They're out of position. The scheme's horrible, blown coverages left and right. Any quarterback in the country should be able to hit a guy that's wide open running down the field with nobody around him. That's not exciting to me, unless it's my team and I want them to score a touchdown and win a big game. That's not exciting to me. I just think that's lazy, awful football. But I like to see a variety. So I may not be the guy to come to, because I would say over the last 10 years, I've become very bored with watching almost every offense in the country. You watch them, and they come up the line, and they're all running an RPO of some sort. And so the quarterback's in the backfield, and he's going to stick the ball. First of all, they're going to stand there for it seems like 3 minutes and look at the sideline. They're going to look at the sideline and wait for it. Like they rush and rush and rush and rush. And they get up to the ball. Then they stand and look at the sideline to get their signal. Mm-hmm. And then just kind of over and over and over and over, quarterback takes snap, puts the ball in the running back's stomach and makes his decision on his RPO read. A lot of offenses, fortunately, have kind of gotten away from too much of that, but for a good 5 years, we were seeing that all over the place. And it actually did my heart good to see Wisconsin out there. If the offense, see the difference between what you're talking about offenses that are just completely anemic and incapable and can't execute, can't do anything, versus a Wisconsin offense of, let's say, 3 or 4 years ago that was not prolific, but understood its identity and recruited the right players and developed them the right way to where they could play really good offensive football.
I agree with you there, and I do agree what you're talking about with the shotgun. IU last year ran that junk where they would stand at the sideline right before, with 1 second left, they'd snap, and it's like the defense gets a great jump because you're snapping it at the exact same time. It's like you need to change it up, and at least IU this year is running more tempo. I do like that because they have to, because their offensive line's bad, so it keeps the defense kind of, guessing a little bit. I do like what Walt Bell's done as offensive coordinator on the tempo to make it different. But my thing is on the shotgun. You'll probably agree because it's just obvious, but I don't understand why it is that people run the shotgun when it's and then they run the ball. You're like 5 yards behind the line. And it's 3rd and 1. You need a yard, and you're going to run from the shotgun. Or you're like in the end zone, and you're at the 1. And too many safeties are done because of that. All you got to do is every now and then sprinkle in the I formation, have the quarterback under center, sneak the ball or hand it off to the tailback. Your odds of picking up the first down are a lot greater than running it out of the shotgun where you're already 5 yards behind the line and the play's slow developing. Indiana's offensive line stinks, and they think running the ball on 3rd and 1 is going to get them there, and there's somebody in the backfield every time, and Cream's the running back. I don't understand that. The I formation is needed, and you are right. Variety is good because, again, you had Oklahoma and Texas and all those teams that had the prolific offenses, and then you had your SEC, so like Alabama and LSU, that were all about the defense and running the ball. Hey, all these were different teams, but now they all run the same thing. But, again, the shotgun, do not have the ball in the shotgun on 3rd and 1 and run it like that. I formation.
Yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could see a team that mostly ran out of the shotgun, but they were able to run under center? So you basically take your quarterback, you got a full off season, just, have him practice with the center, how to take a normal snap from center that he's going to have to do in the NFL. And so he's actually able to do that, because I've heard this from time to time. I've heard an announcer say, maybe to the other announcer, why, it's 3rd and half a yard. Why can't they just run under center? And the analyst will say, well, because this kid's probably never taken a snap from center, so they don't even know how to do it, which is totally ridiculous, because you could really threaten a defense if it's 3rd and 1, because that doesn't mean, all you have to do is watch 1990s football. That doesn't mean just because you're taking a snap from center that you can't throw the ball, that you can't run a play action pass. That doesn't mean you're running for sure. You could really create some different type of looks by doing that.
Some of the best plays in NFL history have been off play action. I mean, it's like, I agree with you 100%. I think that in modern football, and especially with a lot of these teams, teams are getting vanilla, and there needs to be more variety. I agree with you 100%, but that's bold to say that you can't take a snap under center when the ball is literally 1 inch from your hand. It's not that hard. It's actually easier. There's more mistakes on shotgun. You remember Nebraska last year? How many times did the ball go over Adrian Martinez's head? It happened over and over. Maybe that would have been fixed a little bit if you had to run more under center, because you're not having to snap the ball so far. But again, that's probably, like you said, why Scott Frost isn't there anymore, because you couldn't figure that out.
Absolutely. Well, Jeffrey, I'm going to let you go here. We got a few other callers lining up, but I'm glad we got everything worked out and got you all set, and I appreciate you calling.
Thank you so much. I'll hopefully call in on Saturday night. Thank you a lot, and I was glad that I didn't cut out this time.
All right, Jeffrey. Have a good night.
Thank you.
All right. Our first caller was a first-time caller, and I believe that maybe since he's hanging out here that he doesn't realize that it's a one-time deal. So one call per night. That's the quota right there. All right, 2 more calls here. Welcome to the Voice of College Football. Who's on the line?
Hey, Mark. This is Byrick, aka the Hat.
Yeah, how's it going?
I'm doing pretty good.
I'm taking a little poll here, Byrick. Who's your team?
Clemson.
Okay, Clemson fan. All right. Yeah, what's up?
Not much. I'm surprised I didn't watch the end of that West Virginia Baylor game, but I'm glad that WVU pulled it out, because I actually had them winning.
Nice. Good pick.
Yeah.
They were probably, I think they were a 3.
They were when I took them, they were a 3.5 point underdog.
Okay. Gotcha.
So, I mean, a good win for me. I don't put any money on any of these just because I don't like to gamble.
Yeah, you're just having fun.
I just like to have fun.
Yeah.
And do that. What game do you think this weekend has the biggest implications? The Penn State Michigan game or the Alabama Tennessee game?
That's a great question, because it's very close. But if I had to pick one, I would say there's a little bit different of a dynamic, obviously, with the 2 teams playing in the Big Ten in the same division versus the other scenario.
Yeah.
So if Tennessee loses to Bama, they still have a head-to-head with Georgia to play. They basically just have to beat Georgia to win the division, unless they slip up somewhere else. So basically, the Georgia game is everything to Tennessee.
Yeah.
If they beat Georgia, even if they beat Bama, they lose to Georgia, they're not going to the Eastern. They're not winning the East. Bama, pretty much because of that same scenario, it's an extremely important game, but Bama can lose. And then if they take care of Ole Miss and Mississippi State, they're going to be in the SEC championship game. So it's kind of the same deal. So I'm going to go with the other game, because that puts a serious roadblock in your way toward getting to Indianapolis if you lose this game for Penn State or Michigan.
Yeah. So who do you have? Who do you predict to win that game between Penn State and Michigan?
I should take a poll from my folks on Patreon here. My picks are on Patreon. I gotta be loyal to my folks on Patreon.
True. Well, I'll just say
my predictions.
I think Michigan wins.
Okay.
But I think Penn State covers. I don't think it's going to be a 7-point win. I think it's going to come down to a last-minute field goal, low-scoring game.
Okay.
You agree with that?
Well, I'm not
something like 21-24.
Well, I released a video and broke it down and gave my preview. And I think these two teams are, from a talent standpoint, are so comparable. And yeah, they're just extremely comparable from a personnel standpoint. But Michigan's at home. James Franklin has not won big road games against top 10 opponents. He's 0-8 on the road. I think Michigan's ground game, even though Penn State's has been upgraded considerably, Michigan's is truly tested with a superstar in the backfield. Penn State's, again, improved considerably as a run game. But Nick Singleton and Katron Allen, they're true freshmen playing at the big house. I think that's a lot to ask of them. And Michigan truly has what could be called a great offensive line versus Penn State's is just merely much better. I think that the DBs versus the wide receivers, either way, Michigan wide receivers versus Penn State DBs, or the other way around, you're looking at the best 2 to 3 units in the Big Ten for all those 4 units. So those matchups are going to be fascinating. I think that J.J. McCarthy is going to see the most talented defense he's ever seen on a field. I'll tell you that. And he's going to see the best secondary with Jair Brown and Joey Porter and those guys. So, yeah, it'll be a heck of a game.
I'm looking forward to it. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
How high do you have Texas rated in your rankings?
Well, my rankings, if you know anything about my rankings, don't have a whole lot to do with what I think about how good the team is.
Where do you think they actually sit?
Yeah, based on my opinion, I think Texas is really good. I actually do. I don't know what happened to them the last 10 minutes against Texas Tech to blow a 2-touchdown lead. And if we've got any moderators, can you jump in? I can't block these morons, those bots. But anyway, yeah, I think Texas is really good. Best team that they've played is, of course, Alabama, and they outplayed them without their quarterback and their second stringer, Hudson Card, being injured in that game even. So they didn't even have a healthy second stringer, and I thought the officials made a horrible call in the end zone. So anyway, yeah, I think Texas is a top 15 roughly team in the country.
Okay. I agree. I can agree with that. Do you think NC State has any chance of beating Syracuse in the Carrier Dome?
Well, do we know if Devin Leary's healthy?
No, he will not be playing.
Oh yeah, he's not playing. That's why they're like a 3-point underdog or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Sure, I do. I think NC State's a better team than Syracuse. So I don't know anything about the backup quarterback. He played last week. I saw the game, most of the game against Florida State. I watched the replay, but so I didn't get a real good feel for. A lot of backup quarterbacks, we've seen this a zillion times, look like a mess when they've got to come into the game for the first time that they've ever really played meaningful snaps when the game's in doubt, versus when they get a full week then of reps and they get the game plan, they get all the first team reps and they get ready for the next game. And sometimes they're pretty darn good. So I wouldn't be surprised if this backup quarterback played pretty well at Syracuse. And Syracuse, I'm happy for them. I love the story. I would love to see them go to Clemson and play an undefeated, matchup against Clemson, but Syracuse they're not that good. They're good. They're improved. I give them a bunch of credit. They're a top 40 team. NC State's more like a top 15 team.
Yeah.
But without their quarterback. So on the road.
Devin Leary and his receivers really weren't clicking all that much through 6 games. And I mean, heck, they threw one pass in that second half against Florida State.
Yep.
And yeah, so in my opinion, I think Syracuse is going to win it, but NC State might very well just run the ball almost every single down. And if they can get that going, that could be a problem. Because Houston isn't a terrible back.
No.
I mean, he can go. Well, the main reason I was calling is why the hell are people thinking that Clemson is only a 3.5 point favorite over Florida State?
So you're saying Vegas is crazy?
I'm not saying they're crazy. I'm saying they want to make money. But there's a reason why. There's a reason why they put it at that, and then all the money came in on Florida State.
Well, from what I know, the spread was higher earlier in the week, and the money came in on Florida State.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Well, there you go.
Well,
I don't pretend to be an expert on such things, but there's a few things that I do know. Number one, they generally do set the line where they think the game's going to land, but it is influenced by what they think the betting public's going to do. And then the betting public responds to that line, and it moves based on either the betting public moving it or some kind of news coming out. That's pretty rare, but if a quarterback's not going to go or something like that, and there you go. But I think Clemson's better than 3.5 points, better than Florida State.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That's all I'm looking at. Because based on what Dabo has said, we're going to be getting back pretty much everybody on defense. Mainly Mickens. Not Mickens. Brzee, Thomas will be playing a handful. He's not going to play all game, but he is a disruptor.
Yep. All right, man. We are pushing it on time, and we've got one more caller here. So I appreciate you.
I'll let it go.
So I appreciate you calling. Call back anytime. We'll be here tomorrow night and Saturday night after football. So.
No problem.
Thanks, man. Thanks for calling.
Have a good night, Mark.
Thanks. We're going to do our best to keep these shows to 2 hours because we've been going on and on forever in the past. So appreciate you being here. We got one more call from Austin coming in. Austin, appreciate you being here. Thanks for the call. What's going on tonight?
What's happening? Well, Mark, is this the most? I'm going to hit you one right off the bat. Is this the most threatened Alabama's been in a long time in the SEC?
The most
with Ole Miss.
That's a pretty good question. That's a good question. Yeah, off the top of my head, it's been a long time. I think that this is the most that they've been threatened by multiple teams rather than just maybe Auburn threatened them a few times. 2013, 2017 come to mind, of course. But where Auburn basically beat them at the end to win the division. But in terms of us sitting here halfway through the season thinking that they could get picked off, yeah, you may have something there because, they got this game against Tennessee. They got Ole Miss. They got Mississippi State. But, I do think that some of us or some fans out there kind of conjure up these scenarios and we're hoping more than really believing that some of these teams can knock them off.
Because when you look at it as a whole, like the only team that at the beginning of the year, the only team that really anybody thought would be anything to Alabama was Georgia. Georgia, now that we're halfway through the season, you just listed 3 teams that could possibly beat Alabama: Tennessee, Ole Miss, and Mississippi State. How long has it been since that's actually been something?
Well, I totally get your point. But I do think that if we went back in time, there have been scenarios in the last 7 or 8 years where we thought mid-season that Alabama was vulnerable After they lost to Texas A&M last year, they almost lost to LSU. They almost lost to Arkansas. Well, I wouldn't say they almost lost to Arkansas, but it was a one-score game, and they almost lost to Auburn. So anyway, yeah, your point's well taken. Yeah, Alabama has rarely been vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with this too is, Mark, that I'm really curious about in terms of how the game is going to go for Tennessee, Alabama, is we know Tennessee's offense can score, but can Tennessee's defense hold up against Bama's offense?
Yeah, I'm not so sure about that. If Bryce Young is just 80%, this Tennessee defense, I will say that they're much improved. The Tennessee defense of last year was still awful. The Tennessee defense of this year is much improved, but it's still not by any way a great defense. And I got all sorts of people calling, and this was going to be my last call. So if I'm either going to be good-hearted and kind and take these last two calls, and they're going to be like 10-second calls, or we're going to shut it down. Austin, you got anything else for me?
Michigan-Penn State.
Yeah.
This game's basically going to determine who plays Ohio State for the chance to go to the Big Ten championship. Do you agree with that, or?
Well, yeah, because conventional wisdom is that Ohio State's going to win all of its games, but the loser's not out of it necessarily. But you got three teams in the Big Ten. They all play each other. So yes, those three games are critical. You got 63 games in the entire conference, and basically the whole conference comes down to 3 games. Those 3 teams playing each other.
Well, Mark, thank you for taking my call. I know you got to get to these other people. Thank you, and
Thanks,
God bless,
Austin.
and have a good night.
Absolutely. You too. Got J-Dub on the line. What's going on, J-Dub?
Mark, Roll Tide. Roll Tide. They'll take care of Tennessee. My only question then, Mark, I'll just leave it to you and get out of the way. Can UCLA win the rest of their regular season games? Roll Tide. Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, J-Dub. I appreciate it. Can UCLA win the rest of its games? So they got USC. They've got Oregon in Autzen Stadium. If they win this game tomorrow Saturday against Oregon, my goodness, that's going to tell us a whole lot. That's going to really drive the nail to say, man, UCLA is something. They got something going here, because that Washington win, I was impressed at the time, but Washington, they lose to Arizona State. You can't be that good if you're losing to Arizona State. So the Washington win was, basically UCLA having to play somebody finally. And then this win against Utah. This is not a vintage Utah team. They lost to Florida, for goodness sakes. It's a good team. They've been overrated the entire season. Utah has, but they're a good team. They're a good team. They're a fringe top 25 team, and UCLA they handled them. Yes, UCLA could go to Oregon and win, and they can beat USC. Is it likely? No. Let's see. They're 6-0, right? Or is UCLA 5-0? I think they had a bye week already. So if we look at their schedule, I'll say they've got about a 10 or 15% chance of going undefeated. It's not very high. The chances of them winning at Autzen Stadium on Saturday and then also winning these other games, let's see, we've got at Oregon. That's like a 50-50 shot, maybe. Actually, that's more like 60-40 Oregon. Stanford's awful, or Arizona State's awful. Arizona's awful. Then they got USC at the Rose Bowl, and they got Cal on the road, which is tricky. It's a 10 or 15% chance that UCLA is going to go undefeated, but they can do it. It could be done. All right, the real MVP's here. What's going on?
Nothing much. How about you, Mark?
I'm good.
I need a top 5 games of the week.
Top 5 games of the week. Well, I'm going to go to this screen over here that I can see better. So right out of the gate, Penn State, Michigan, and Tennessee, Alabama. Absolutely those two. I have to see, no doubt. Also, we've got those two until they get replaced. This is a big game. A lot of people think this is boring. They don't care. It's the Big Ten West, but Minnesota and Illinois. Okay, let's put them temporarily in the top 5. Then TCU and Oklahoma State. Got to put that in the top 5. So that's 4. NC State and Syracuse. I'm intrigued by NC State and Syracuse, but neither one of those teams is winning the division. So it's just for bowl placement. Clemson, Florida State, Mississippi State, Kentucky. All right, your top 5 games are number 1, Penn State, Michigan, just because it means a little bit more. Number 2, Alabama, Tennessee. Number 3, TCU, Oklahoma State. Number 4, Minnesota, Illinois. 5, Florida State, Clemson. There you go.
I found it funny you incorporated the SEC, it just means more motto in talking about the Big Ten. I'm not sure if that was on purpose, but that was funny.
It was
no consideration for USC, Utah, NC State, Syracuse.
I'm sorry, Daryl. My mind's going at this point. What did you say?
No consideration for USC, Utah.
Oh,
NC
I forgot
State,
about that
Syracuse.
game. There's too many good games. I said NC State and Syracuse. The next one on the list would be USC and Utah, and I'm sure I've offended all sorts of Pac-12 people that just think that's going to be the game of the year. Utah and USC, sure. I would just rather watch those other games. But
fair enough.
Do I want to see USC and Utah? Yeah, I want to see that game too. There's always about 15 games I want to see. Shoot, I want to see Kentucky and Mississippi State play.
I believe Kentucky's getting Will Levis back, so should make the game more competitive.
Yes.
But Mark, the under the radar game for this week, I believe, is going to be LSU, Florida.
That's an under the radar game.
Yeah, I haven't heard anybody talk about it.
Well, it's not important. Nobody really considers those teams. They're not that good. That's why. But in terms of brand name, is that really under the radar? And they're playing a primetime game on ESPN.
Well, I mean, if you want to talk about under the radar, if you want another under the radar game that doesn't involve big brands, we'll go with Washington State, Oregon State.
That's a good one. And here's a good one. Here's a game that we talked about a lot in the offseason, but because these teams have faltered, nobody's talking about this game. Arkansas and BYU.
Yeah, I think BYU's great win against Baylor might have been exposed a bit for being overrated with the way Baylor's looking. They're not doing so well right now at 3-3. I think they've already can't perform the expectations most people had for them. So
here's your under the radar game. North Carolina, Duke.
That's going to be an interesting game. I just didn't want to go with another coastal game. I went with Duke, game. Georgia Tech last week, so I tried changing it up a bit.
Gotcha. That's a
because
big game.
I have a feeling you can basically say any coastal game is going to be under the radar because they're all going to be important, but they're all going to feature bad teams more than likely. So,
yeah, that's all they have are bad teams. So that's all they can feature.
Yeah. Congrats to Louisiana for beating Marshall and UCF destroying Temple 70-13.
Yes, I see that score. Wow.
Yeah, I know. If UCF didn't play Louisville, let's say they play a Jacksonville State, something like that, a team they would most likely win by 40, where would they be?
Where would UCF if they beat who?
If they didn't lose to Louisville or they had them not on the schedule, replaced with an easy opponent.
Well, see, that's a good point that you're making right there. And I only say that because I know where you're going because we've talked about this so many times. people would be overhyping UCF right now if they were 6-0, and they wouldn't have beaten anyone. But some desperately want to grab a group of 5 team and try to pretend that they're good enough to play these other teams, and they're not.
Exactly. I think eventually we're going to have a playoff model here in a few years that's going to have a group of 5 team guaranteed a playoff spot. I think that's going to happen, and I think they're going to get exposed.
Well, shoot, if it's a UCF of this year and they can barely beat or not beat Louisville, who's one of the worst teams in the Power 5, then there you go. At home.
Yep. Well, Mark, anyway, that's good talking to you. Hit the like and subscribe button. We got a great day of football coming up Saturday. Two good games, 2 quality-ish games on Friday, so.
Yeah, we do. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. All right, Eric, you got a 15-second call because I've taken 4 more calls than I was supposed to. How's it going?
It's going good, man. It's good to see you. It's been a minute.
Yes. What's going on?
Not much. I just I just hadn't jumped in a little bit, and I missed the whole show. I just got home. So what do you think about Bama and Tennessee this weekend? And we can just keep it at that.
Bama, Tennessee. I think it's got the potential to be a really good game. Obviously, Bryce Young's health is huge. And, this is finally the time for Tennessee to show that they belong, or they're going to get whipped by 14 to 30 points. And we'll know that they're a pretty good team, but they're not Georgia or Alabama. I will not be surprised if we're sitting here in November and we will have seen Tennessee lose to Alabama, 34-17, and lose to Georgia 41-24. And we know that Tennessee is a good team, and they'll go to the Citrus Bowl and maybe beat somebody, but they're not ready for these two. Their roster depth, none of that is ready for Alabama or Georgia. That doesn't mean that they can't on a given night win that game.
Yeah, but it means that once the second half hits and guys are tired, that the differences are going to be evident. Are you going with the conventional wisdom that if Bryce Young plays, Alabama wins, and if he doesn't, Tennessee has a much better chance of winning?
Well, I haven't made a pick on the game, so I'm not necessarily going with anything right now, but I would say this, that I'm most likely going with Alabama if Bryce Young's going to play, but I guess we're not going to know that for sure. But if he doesn't play, I would be the last person to say Alabama's losing this game because Jalen Milroe's playing and not Bryce Young. I don't count out Alabama winning this game. We're giving Tennessee way too much credit.
I think that's fair. I think someone needs to bring him back down to earth, but we've gone over our 15-second allotment, and I appreciate your time. Thanks so much, Mark.
Thanks, Eric. I appreciate it.
Right.
And I don't like when we get to this point in the show when I need to wrap up at 2 hours and we go like 20 minutes over, and people call at the end, and I want to appreciate those people that call, of course, and have waited. But at the same time, we just need to wrap it up. So I appreciate everybody being here. We will be here again on Friday night after the football. And the real MVP said that we've got good games on Friday. Do we? What Friday night? Do we? Navy and SMU and Texas San Antonio, Florida International. Anyway, I'm not going to be too excited about those games. Anyway, Saturday's got 10 games that I want to see at least, minimum. Great games on Saturday, great matchups. Hopefully you can join us again Friday after the games, or sometime on Friday night. We'll be here, maybe after our West Virginia show at 8. Maybe I'll go live at 9. We don't need to necessarily wait for these games to be over by any stretch of the imagination, but 9 o'clock with the call-in show on Friday night, and then we'll be here after the primetime games on Saturday here at the Voice of College Football. Appreciate your help. Appreciate your support. Amazon link. Join us on Discord. Go to MarkRogersTV on Patreon. Sign up for the Discord. Talk college football all the time. See you tomorrow.